Alrighty, folks. I am George. Looks like we are live, and this is the Debt Hotline with Solo. And we're here with my friend Sheldon. Sheldon, can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Sheldon Banker. I've been in the debt space for debt settlement company for almost 8 years now. Uh, so I've been with TurboDebt since the very beginning. We've helped many thousands of people throughout the years. We've always taken an interest in really being able to get in there and help people fix their lives.
Fantastic. And we are talking today. So we're doing this live Q&A with Turbo Debt with Sheldon. And the big question for today is debt settlement right for you? So folks listening in, we're going to go ahead and help you figure out the answer to that question today. Sheldon, what does TurboDebt do exactly? How can TurboDebt help the
So
people listening in?
we're in the debt settlement space, right? A typical client of ours has been struggling making minimum payments for typically many years, right? 2, 3, 4, maybe more years. Uh, and with everything going on in today's economy, rates going up, prices going up, uh, what they're finding is it's becoming harder and harder to just struggle to get by and make your minimum payments. And without someone there to help people, eventually what's going to happen is 3 years is going to turn into 5 years, 5 years is going to turn into 7 years. And a lot of times if they don't do something to fix it, 7 years is going to turn into a bankruptcy or just not being able to retire. Nothing really good happens when you carry a large debt load for a long time.
Right. That is for sure. That is for sure. Okay. Folks, if you're listening in, we reserve quite a bit of the time for any questions that you have live. So go ahead and just put your questions into the chat, and we will try to get to that question and give you an answer. We also have the hotline, which is open, so you can call in to our hotline and ask whatever question you would like. Uh, Let me pull up the phone number here for the hotline. It is 801-613-8181. Yep. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask, just go ahead and call in to 801-613-8181. You can leave us a voicemail there, and we'll make sure that we get to it. We prioritize anybody who's calling in on the hotline. You can also write in a question. We have quite a few people who have written in questions today. So let's go ahead and take one of those. So we have a question here from Patricia in Minnesota. I'm being sued for a payday loan that was bought out by a collection company. The original debt was $1,700. Now it's up to $2,500. The court date is in 1 month. Can I still settle out of court before my court date? Uh, Sheldon, what's your take here?
Yeah, I mean, usually by the time there's a court date, it's a lot of times it's too late for most companies to do anything. Right. That's already worked its way through the system. They filed whatever they needed to file, and now they're now you're on your way to court. Uh, so my take is you're probably better off just calling the company ahead of time and getting a handle on it. Most debt settlement companies won't take something you've already been sued on. Oh, I apologize, Patricia. Has she been to court? You said, George.
Yeah, she just got sued. Yep.
So she's
Yep.
already been to court. There's not much we can do. If it's before court, we can probably help.
Right. And yeah, and Sheldon, so this is where we come into play. So Patricia, you can definitely use Solo to wrap this up, right? So we specialize in helping people who have been sued for debt and getting those cases resolved. We've helped people resolve over $3 billion in debt lawsuits. Over 300,000 people have trusted us with those resolutions. So you can use us to get that wrapped up, right? So you've been sued for a payday loan. It was bought out by a collection company. We see that kind of thing all the time. And now you're being sued for $2,500. The first step that you want to do, Patricia, is respond to the lawsuit, right? So you use our product Solo Suit to create a response and engage with the collector by creating your answer and then getting it filed in court. We make that real easy. Then you can use our product Solo Settle to connect with the collector and get that thing settled with them. And hopefully you won't have to show up to court. Hopefully you'll be able to settle before you go to court. Alrighty. We have another question here from JD in Washington. I defaulted on a credit union credit card. The principal amount is $23,000. Last payment was 18 months ago. The debt was discharged and picked up by a debt collection agency. That collection agency has tacked on another $14,000 in interest payments. JD, that's a lot of money. $14,000 is in interest is a lot, even for a $23,000 debt. I've made half a dozen offers to the credit agency to enter into a payment plan, and they are demanding a lump sum payment in full as the only option. They have now filed a lawsuit against me up here. I owe a response to the court next week. What options do I have? Should I respond and deny the debt is mine, or should I admit it and tell the judge I have tried numerous times to settle, but the collection agency refuses to negotiate? I cannot afford to pay this amount in full. Uh, so this one is dealing with a debt lawsuit again. So, right, you're wondering, what do you do? So you have $23,000 in principal, another 14,000 in interest, right? So you're being sued for like $37,000 altogether. You have made quite a few offers. You've tried settling. Now you're being sued, wondering what to do. So uh, denying a statement in a lawsuit isn't the same as saying uh, that the statement is not true. Okay? So denying a statement is not the same as saying that a statement is not true. So that's an important point here for you to consider. So if we look up the definition of deny in the Oxford Dictionary, it says state that one refuses to admit the truth or existence thereof. It is not the same as saying a statement is not correct. So when you're denying something in a lawsuit, the reason why like lawyers deny everything in a lawsuit isn't because everything is not true in the complaint document. It's just that they're refusing to admit it. Right. So that's why you can just go ahead and deny things and then position yourself to get things settled. Because if you admit everything in the complaint against you, you're certainly just going to lose your case, and then your wages will be garnished. Right. And all that said, it's important to respond truthfully in these documents and pleadings. So what you do here, JD, is you respond, you create an answer document, you get it filed in court. You're letting people know that you can test. If it makes you if it's more accurate, you can say you deny for lack of knowledge, or you can just say I don't know, because oftentimes things can be a little bit unclear in the records here. So you can get the answer document generated, and then you can file that in uh, in court, and that puts you in a good position to settle and fully resolve the case. Anything you want to weigh in here with, Sheldon?
No, I mean, I think you covered it, right? It's by the time things are going to court, it's just a different ballgame.
Right. Okay. Um, so we have another question here from Teresa in Colorado. I'm in a debt relief program that takes most of my income, but I'm getting summons, threatening letters, and demands for payment for the credit cards that still have not been paid. How do I make deals with collection companies that want to sue me while I'm in this uh, debt relief program? What's the best approach?
So it really depends on how long you've been in it, right? So if it's something you've been in for a few months, maybe you were late. There's a lot of information I don't have with that statement. Uh, but a lot of times it's going to take 4 to 6 months to start seeing your debt settlement. Uh, Reasons like that are sometimes reasons people don't do it, but it's a part of what's going to happen, right? You're in a debt relief program. You've stopped making your payments. It's going to take a little bit to start structuring all the settlements and for you to save up enough money in order to get those settlements. And what these companies are doing is what they typically do. So if you've been in there for more than 6 months, you should start to be seeing settlements. And as you start getting settlements and start paying those off, eventually they'll get through to all of them. But the letters and the threats, they're really not the scariest part, right? The scariest part is why you decided to do it in the first place and go into a debt relief program, right? And that's the fact that you had all this debt, you were having trouble making your payments, you weren't going to be able to pay anyways, and you didn't have a solution. Uh, Once you've been in there for long enough, what you're going to start seeing is you're going to start seeing the solution come to life, right? First, you'll get a settlement on one, then a second one, and eventually, you'll get settlements on all of them. Don't let the letters and the calls deter you from your main goal, Teresa.
Fantastic. Uh, yeah, Sheldon. I mean, tell us more about that. Why do people enroll in like a debt settlement program? What is the scariest part that they're like trying to avoid here? Yeah, maybe you could give us a little more context.
Yeah. So look, most people who call us, like I said, have been dealing with this for years, right? Their income's not increasing, their debt loads increasing every year, every month. So every month their bills are getting a little bit harder to pay. Uh, and most people can see the writing on the wall, right? Your debt can't keep going up and your income stay the same and you still be able to long term make your payments. Forget about ever knocking the balances down, right? These people are living paycheck to paycheck, and that's the worst part for them right now, right? You have absolutely zero way to ever get out of this. And even if you made minimum payments for 20 years, the only way these cards would be paid off is if you never use them again. And by the time you're in that situation, the reality is many people are using their credit cards just to get by with groceries or gas or pay their electric bill. Like there's really no way out of it. So going into any sort of debt settlement program, right? The fear is for these people who have been told their entire life, you have to pay your bills, you have to have good credit, you have to have good credit. But what happens is they keep chasing good credit and paying their bills. And every time they pay the bill, what's happening is their retirement has less money, right? Their day-to-day life has less money. And the only way to perpetuate it is to continue to put money on there. Uh, and it's just not a winning situation for anyone long term, right? To give up your retirement or your savings or the way you want to live just to be able to buy groceries. So keeping up on the credit, this whole thing is what's or borrowing more money to try and keep up on the credit. More of the problem is just never the solution in any walk of life. And most people who do this are scared, but anything is better than making minimum payments for the rest of your life.
Right. For sure. Yeah, that's a real it's a real thing. How do you think about people choosing between bankruptcy and debt settlement? When should somebody go into like a debt settlement program? When should somebody go into bankruptcy in your mind?
Look, I think there's a right solution for everyone, right? There's no perfect solutions in the debt space. It doesn't matter what you do, right? It just what's best for the client. Uh, Look, if someone's got an obscene amount of medical bills, right? If you have 400,000 in medical bills from some life flight trip, they're never going to pay that off, and they're probably not going to be able to pay that off with a debt settlement company, right? A huge payment to pay something off that's more than you make is not a reality. So if it's something that would be impossible for them ever to pay off, bankruptcy can be the right choice in a lot of choices, right? If it's something where you're fumbling and you could make it if only your payments weren't $2,000 a month, if your payments were whatever cut in half, and now all of a sudden that gives you enough money to pay your bills and live your life and knock this off in 3 or 4 years, uh, that's going to be a better situation. Most people are going to get a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Uh, and you give up a lot of your life control by going to a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, right? You're under the thumb of a trustee, and you start making more money, you start paying more money. Uh, but bankruptcy is always kind of the nuclear option, right? But it's still right for some people. It just depends on where they're at financially and how much in bills they have.
Right. Great. Well, we have another question from someone who left us a voicemail on our hotline. Let me go ahead and hold that up.
To know what. Hello, my name is Rye. I am in the state of Georgia. My debt question today is with reference to debt settlements. I wanted to know what would be the best strategy to use if I'm contacting debt collectors in reference to settling accounts. For example, I have different credit cards that have gone into collections. Some have been charged off. I would like to pay everything off. However, I know I don't have all the funds available, so I'm going to do this one by one. But what could I ask for? What could I state in order to get them to settle for a significant amount less than what is actually owed?
All right. So look, you can always do a debt settlement by yourself, right? Everyone can do anything by themselves. One of the benefits of using a big company is that they have negotiating power, right? When you're dealing with billions of dollars of debt annually, you have back roads into these companies. To me, with the fact that you haven't paid, right, these companies are all most likely going to accept something because it's better than nothing. Uh, and what they're going to do with the money they get is they're going to loan it out to the next person at 29.9% APR. So you can call them. They're going to be pretty amenable to doing any sort of settlement because you haven't paid them in so long, and it sounds like everything's in collections. But my recommendation is always to have professionals do it for you. It's a lot of stress and it's a lot of time to go through and do this all on your own. And if there's 10 or 15, you're dealing with 10 or 15 different people, 10 or 15 different yeses. It can be very overwhelming to do on your own.
That's for sure. It totally can be. Uh, it can be very overwhelming. I think a lot of people think about like calling the collector is probably the most terrifying call of their entire lives, right? So they really want to avoid it, and it can be, it can be painful, right? I think when I was just speaking with somebody last week, a friend of mine who had a broken leg, slipped, broke their leg, went to the hospital, didn't have health insurance, went to the ER, ended up being a week long visit in the hospital, gets out of the hospital, they tell her that now she owes the hospital $50,000. She never agreed to pay anybody $50,000. She never agreed to. They never told her how much it would cost. Let's get done with the service. All of a sudden, it's $50K. And then she's been trying to call the hospital multiple times. Has sent them letters. They never get back to her. She cannot get through to them. It's really like a frustrating experience that we hear from consumers frequently. Is that yeah, I've been trying to talk to the collector for months, but the collector's never responds to me. And then for us at Solo, we really work with collectors and consumers quite a bit, so we maintain great relationships with collectors. And something that we hear from collectors oftentimes is, uh, we've been trying to reach this consumer all the time, repeatedly. We just try to contact the consumer, but they never get back to us. So that's one of the reasons why we exist as Solo. We're positioned as a trusted mediator between the consumer and the collector, working in tandem with everybody to get things resolved. Uh, so that's a key point, right? So if you're using Solo Settle, we maintain good relationships with the collectors, so you can just figure out what you can pay on the debt, select the resolution plan, and get things wrapped up.
Yeah, nothing scarier than getting a $50,000 bill or a $20,000 bill that you have no idea in the world for how to handle, because no one taught us that portion of the playbook our entire lives. And you do the best they can trying to get a hold of one hospital collector or a small group of people to resolve it, and they have 40,000 other accounts.
Right? That's for sure. That is for sure. And folks, a lot of people come to Solo when they're being sued for a debt, which is really like rock bottom. It's kind of like the end of the debt journey, or the debt cycle. And we help people bounce all the way back from rock bottom, right? So we point people to our Solo steps for getting back on the right track. So step one is respond to your lawsuit. Step two is settle your lawsuit. So get that immediate, intense pain point fully wrapped up. Step three is settle your other debts that you might have. You can settle all of those. You can enroll with somebody like TurboDebt. You can use something like Solo Settle to get your debts wrapped up. And then from there, you want to make a 1K stash, right? Start saving some money. Make sure you have money in the bank when you need it most. And then five, increase your income. Get to a point where you can automate investments into index funds. Equity is really the biggest driver of wealth in the US. Index funds is an easy way to own a part of every company that's publicly traded within the US. And then from there, you want to boost your credit score to 800 or above. 850 is the perfect credit score. Only know of one person who's ever achieved it. But you can certainly get up to 750 and then 800 and beyond that. And then step seven here is continue to prosper. And we can help you with all of that here at Solo. So that is a quick rundown. Sheldon, uh, again on like debt settlement, right? So
Okay.
something that people I think wonder is, even if they're not deciding on bankruptcy, even if they're just considering debt settlement, like where's like the minimum limit for somebody to sign up for debt settlement? Is like somebody who has like a $3,000 credit card bill, and that's like all they have, but they're a little bit worried about us getting kind of out of hand. Are they a good candidate for debt settlement at that point?
No, typically the minimum's about $7,500. So typically the minimum's about $7,500. Once again, we don't want to be charging fees for someone on $3,000, or there's a point where it doesn't really make sense to have a company, and if you're under $7,500, it's not really going to make sense. Once you get over that threshold, it it's where it starts to make sense.
Right. So above 7,500. Well, that makes sense. All right. Well, we have uh, one more question coming in here. And folks, if you have any questions at any time, feel free to call in on the hotline, which is 801-613-8181. We'll make sure that we answer your question. All right, we have Tom in Texas. I co-signed a private student loan for my nephew 5 years ago. He stopped making payments last year, and now the loan is in default with a balance of $32,000. The lender has started contacting me directly, threatening to report the delinquency on my credit card, or on my credit report rather, and garnish my wages if I don't begin payments. I've reached out to them asking for options, but they're only offering an aggressive repayment schedule that I cannot manage on my fixed income. I haven't missed any payments on my own obligations, and I'm worried this will ruin my credit. Sounds like a bummer, Tom, with your nephew. Sounds like a real bummer. What can I do to protect myself and avoid defaulting on this loan?
So, look, I mean, to me, based on what you're saying, Tom, it sounds like default is inevitable at this point, right? You said you're not going to be able to afford the aggressive terms that they're offering, uh, and if you can't afford it, you can't afford it, and trying to afford something that you simply can't afford by giving up any sort of financial security or any sort of or deciding to take a bite out of your food budget, it just has never made sense to put yourself behind, and it is sad that your nephew defaulted, but there's no reason for you to put yourself in a position that you're not going to be able to maintain long term, and that it sounds like you're never going to be able to do it long enough to pay it off. So that's a situation where at TurboDebt we would help someone. Once again, you have some negotiating power when you're negotiating on billions of dollars versus when you're a single person that they're scaring into telling you this, right? It's the perfect time to have someone on your side to help you out.
Is this something that Tom could enroll in TurboDebt? Like
Yeah,
a
we
student loan,
we yeah
student loan like this?
private student loans are enrollable, right? And then Tom did the right thing. He was a good uncle, right? He helped his nephew out, go to school. And that's a situation we see people in all the time, right? You try and do a good thing for a good person, and sometimes things just go sideways. Uh, but there's really no reason to let that hang over your head without calling a company like TurboDebt, right? We can do something that maybe you can't. And if you know the end game right now is the only option they're giving you is you not going to be able to afford it, they're not giving you an option.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. Uh, okay, well, just wrapping up here. We have a couple great comments from the audience. Let's see, we have a little message from Wes saying Turbo Debt is a lifesaver. Thanks for letting us know, Wes. We have Billy D saying I went through GRT. Excellent company, had over 70K in credit card debt. Nice. And we have Jill who's saying thank you and good stuff. Thanks, guys. And one last comment here. Philly D said, sad to say, co-signing for a car means they can't afford it. Probably true, Philly.
That's definitely true.
Yep. Yep. Co-signing can be bad news. Okay. Oh, Well, folks, that's what we have time for today. This is the Debt Hotline. I'm George, and we've been talking with Sheldon with TurboDebt. Sheldon, where can people find out more about TurboDebt?
TurboDebt.com.
Nice, turbodebt.com. And folks, if you're going to use Solo to respond to a lawsuit, go ahead and use this link that is in the chat now that will support TurboDebt as well. And it will be a nice thank you for Sheldon for coming on the show. And then one last thing, folks, one last thing. Philly D saying, I heard TurboDebt is really good as well. Fantastic.
Philly D is
And
right
then
on both counts.
Philly D knows his stuff. I'm also dropping a link to our debt payoff giveaway. So if you are being sued for debt or you just have a debt that you want to get settled, you can come on to solicit.com and just click reply to a debt lawsuit, and we'll help you go along. We'll just ask you a few questions. You'll be able to create your response and get it settled. Then you might see here, you'll see Solo's Independence giveaway, which is our giveaway for the month of July, celebrating the 4th of July and freedom from debt. You will be able to win $4,700 if you just go here and sign up. Just click the enter to end your debt. You can also see Abraham Lincoln doing a little dance celebrating freedom from debt. All right, so go ahead and go over there. Just click the link here in the chat and sign up, and you could win $4,700, which is the average amount that people are sued for when they're using Solo to respond to debt lawsuits. All right, folks, thanks for coming on. That's it for the Debt Hotline. Take care.
Thanks.